back. This is where we're going to start. So we're starting on the city boundary. So over there we've got the City of Westminster, and here we have the City of London. Now, our theme of the walk today is going to be films, and it's quite a big industry nowadays, something like 1.3 billion a year. And what do they say here? 981 films were made in the city last year, and they used 789 film days. So virtually every day of the year they got films. On the South Bank side here, have you seen Four Weddings and a Funeral?
Oh, yes.
Yeah?
You're right on that one.
And you know Hugh Grant's character Charles, and Kerry, which was played by Andy McDowell.
Yeah.
Over there is a scene where he's fallen in love with her and he chases her. I've got a picture of that here. Hugh Grant stars in quite lots of things today. So that was down on the South Bank. Where is it?
I think that's right.
That's it? Yeah, that one there. So just down there near the South Bank, he's chasing her along.
There's a cracking, absolutely fantastic scene where Hugh Grant meets up with Andy McDowell, and they actually meet up behind the building we're about to walk up to. And the building is the home of the of British cinema, if you like, really. It's the National Film Theatre. And what he does, first of all, he meets his brother, doesn't he? His brother's deaf. And he's doing this whole thing, he's basically translating to her what his brother's saying. Of course, his brother's saying naughty little comments about Andy McDowell, but he's saying, oh, he says good morning, and he's talking about her anatomy, isn't he? It's cracking. Of course, she doesn't know. It's a bit like, what would you call it, language roulette. You know, fantastic stuff. You know, she hasn't got a clue what sign language he's saying. And of course, then she walks off, and of course, Hugh Grant all of a sudden decides he's got to tell her in that great English fashion that he loves her.
Films, you see, London has this one fixed view that London is, you know, a very romantic place. It's like, you know, it's very upper class, as you will see, but you don't see the other faces of London. I mean, London is multicultural, and like people fail to portray this image in the thing. But when, as a Londoner, you get to see this other side of London, and you get to experience it yourself.
The majority of people in London don't live in this, like the place they show, which is like central London. They live outside central London cities, and like we're all not really rich upper class people. We're working class. You know, we go to school in like not very great areas sometimes, but it's not really as glamorous as it seems. Some of it's quite dull actually.
You know, it's English people, predominantly white, so you know, they're going to obviously know about, they're obviously going to want to film white people. That's how some people act, and it is a certain place.
I can't really think of one, because like, they're all meant to appeal to a wide audience, and like no one's going to really want to see the real London, because it's not really going to appeal to many people. Because it's not just going like for people in London, it's going like worldwide, and like they kind of want to see a certain image of like where we live, and it might not be the one that they like.
Something that would represent a movie that was similar. It wouldn't be an English movie, it would be an American movie, because American movies, they actually branch out to the whole different parts of America. But they don't, not an English movie I can't think of, because it's, you know, usually it's just about one thing.
Sometimes Americans make a film in New York or somewhere, and they come and they have to do a retake. So they can't go back to America to do it. So what the corporation has to do is get all the parking signs, take the heads off, take the signs down and put American signs. So when they go along, they think it's in America.
Mind the gap.
I'm aware that some people go on this walk because they have apparently seen a film called Notting something or other, Notting Hill possibly. How many of you have seen the film Notting Hill? How many of you have not? Now, for about 7 of you, there's going to be a bit of the walk which is going to be completely over your head, and you won't have any idea what I'm talking about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to walk through the residential areas here now, and across the road where Holland Park is, Lord Holland owned most of the land and developed very, very large properties. And indeed, together with Kensington, it's one of the most expensive areas to live, and some of you will know that the world's record-breaking house price was reached about 20 minutes walk away, £75 million for the house. Here, if you want to buy a house in this street or one of the neighbouring streets, you'll be pleased to know that you won't have to spend that sort of money. Anybody want to give me a price for a house?
500,000.
$1 million. I'm not going to accept $1 million, I'm sorry. I would certainly accept 3 million, thank you very much indeed. You'll find the house prices are between just over $1 million and $1.5 million. So those of you who are negotiating for $1 million are trying to do a hard bargain here. But you probably won't get it for $1 million, but certainly $1 million to $1.5 million you will. And you'll get a house, of course, behind you if you bought one, with that extensive garden. Do you see it? When we start walking uphill a bit later and I tell you the origins of Notting, and bless everybody, when I start telling you the origins of Notting, as in Notting Hill, the houses prices do increase. And towards Portobello Road, when we're on the top of the hill, some of the apartments actually are over £1 million for the apartment. So that gets that out of the way, yes?
Notting Hill as such has always been quite expensive to live in anyway, especially like, you know, the residential, you know, the property is quite high in price. But Westbourne Grove, which is basically connected to Ladbroke Grove and Notting Hill Gate and Portobello Market, that area has started to really expand.
Well, London is expensive, not in housing only. We are using petrol, which is expensive, I will say, from all over the world. And living expenses are high in London, but we're not comparing the facilities. If you compare the facilities we have, and plus the wages, people still can manage to pay all these kind of things.
But the amazing thing is, of course, that many of you will remember this fantastic film called Notting Hill, starring Hugh Grant as Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts as one of her enormous smiles. And the film, of course, is a feel-good film, is it not? Yeah. And you remember at the end of the film, after a fairly tempestuous relationship between the two of them, everything is settled down. And if I remember rightly, she is with child, yes? Do you remember this? And the camera pans away from them. Do you remember this? As they're sitting on a park bench. Some of you remember this? Yeah. Now, if you can imagine, even if you haven't seen the film, this is a good end to a film. So the audience will either collectively go, ah, or depending on your viewpoint, of course. But you might like to know that the park bench is almost as famous as Julia and Hugh. The sequence was supposedly filmed at the end there on the right. You can't get to see where it's filmed because you just can't look into the garden. But the park bench, of course, which featured, you'll be interested to know, has been sold more than once in Notting Hill. Because apparently what's been happening from time to time is people have climbed into gardens like this, taken the park bench with them, and they've sold it as the park bench in Notting Hill. So, you know, so far, however, nobody has sold Hugh Grant, as far as I know. But amazing development for the film. But it's your first mention of it, of course. And from here on, we'll be getting ever closer to the hallowed footsteps of Hugh and Julia.
Well, we showed Notting Hill at the film festival because he lives just up the road, right? Yeah. Well, he used to live up the road. In fact, he used to live in the house that they shot the movie in. He doesn't live there anymore, but he used to live there, and his offices are just up the road. He's over that apart gallery. Have you noticed the apart gallery on the corner, opposite the Gold? But that's where his studios are. He gave us Notting Hill to show at the festival, which we showed on the big screen outside in the park. He was worried. He was very worried about it because he thought that he thought the local people weren't very happy with the film because it didn't reflect
it had that kind of bohemian, sort of funny sort of thing that Portobello's definitely got. But I mean, there were a lot of complaints that it didn't have a single blackface in it, and obviously the local Jamaican culture is very important to Portobello.
English strawberries there, free for a pound. Raspberries there, free for a pound.
You'd have to be really watching the film really so precisely, but my aunt is actually in that movie. I don't know if there's a part in it when in the middle of the film and he's just walking through and the seasons change. It goes from sunny to snow, and there's a part in it when it's snowing, which was in Notting Hill Gate. And my aunt, who's lived in just next to Portobello Market for the last over 30 years, she happens to be there. And my aunt's Syrian from my dad's side, and she's not really shy. So she's like, I want to be in this film. I'm part of this area. So this lady took her, and you can see her. And the funny part is, when he's going past in the snow part, you actually can see my aunt taking up her camera to take a picture of Hugh Grant and put it back. I swear to God, man. You watch it next time. Lady with a pinkish scarf, black coat, and a big woolly hat. But it's right in the background. But I have seen the film, yeah.
And they also, of course, was filming Notting Hill in a place called Westbourne Park, which is a section of Notting Hill, if you like, right? Now, by the way, just out of interest, anyone know what the travel bookshop that was on Portobello Road became? It's not a travel bookshop anymore. It's a Starbucks. It's true though. Yeah, it turned into a Starbucks. So if you go to the Starbucks, then you're in the travel shop, but you won't find Hugh Grant working there. No, no.
But yes, there are lots of independent, privately owned shops in the area, and they're slowly disappearing. Partly, ironically, because of the film, more attention is there's been more attention to the area, and big chain shops have been being opened and pushing out the small traders.
Instead of Starburger, you got Starbucks. And I mean, just to give an analogy, like the local pubs, not that myself I attend them, but a few years ago you'd see, if you were walking by the pub, you'd always see the same old faces in this pub, okay? They say, these old guys, local people that just live either above the pub or next door, local people, and there's always like a sweaty type of, strong brewery type of smell. Now, they've just, this is where you'll see it. Most of these pubs have just been revolutionized, I would say. They've taken everything out, they've knocked the whole inside out, refurbished it, renovated the whole thing, and a new theme has been put there. And you'll find that these people that are moving in, it's type of a middle class, type of trendy, stroke, city life people that attend these pubs now. That has totally changed, and you can see that from that. That's one thing that I noticed.
Now, if you look diagonally across the road, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the blue face here, the travel bookshop, about 3 shops in from the corner. Can you see that? That is the real travel bookshop. So it was also the travel bookshop used in the film. Of course, as you realise, that this bookshop was famous long before Richard Curtis decided to use it in a film. And of course, what they did is they measured it, photographed it, and recreated it in the studio, and transferred, as it were, the front of it to Portobello Road. The final piece of the jigsaw, of course, is when the casting was made, and Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts, all of both of them, came here to carry out their research, and they, of course, did go to the travel bookshop. So you can be sure, is he choking on this? You can be sure that if you walk through the travel bookshop, you know that famous people have walked through that door before you.
Because I saw the movie Notting Hill, and in the movie he works in a travel bookshop, so it's right here. I was excited. I didn't think I was going to find it. I thought it was made up.
Richard Curtis, believe it or not, he transposed that to the script and had this travel bookshop writer travel bookshop owner played by Hugh Grant meet a famous actress played by a famous actress, and he threw orange juice over the famous actress. And once, of course, the travel bookseller throws orange juice over an actress, the only thing you could do is take her back home with you, which is what he did. The travel bookshop in the film was located literally with its face onto Portobello Road.
If you've been to Portobello, you'd notice that when you're walking down the street, you'd have to say, where am I? Like, you know, if you went down to South End, you know, I'm definitely in South End. There's a lot of white people there, for example. Or if you went down to, let's say, Brixton, you'd say, well, I know I'm in Brixton because there's a lot of black people down there. But Portobello Market, that is the place where everything, it's the melting pot. Every colour, race, nationality, language, culture, fashion, it's all in this place. When you say you're from West London, you know, like for example, like I know, like in places like East London, for example, the segregation is, there's quite a gap between communities. It's like you've got the Asian community, you'd have the black community, you'd have the white community, and so on and so forth. But with West London, it's more where your identity isn't a colour or a race as such. It's more you're from West London.
But I do prefer the east side of London though, because it's less, there's less of a divide between the rich and the poor. They're sort of quite an equal level, and I like that better because between the West End and stuff, there is a big divide. If you go in there, you're either rich or you're poor, you're either black or you're white sort of thing. It's one or the other.
Central London, I don't really like going there. I don't feel comfortable going in the place where there's not lots of mix of people. I mean, like, every day you walk, it's like, it's all white people, and it's like, sometimes they act like they've never seen a black person before, and it's really uncomfortable. So I prefer to stay like southeast, like more twilight areas.
Now, recently, Natalie Portman was here filming a film, V for Vendetta. Now, you might not know V for Vendetta yet, but you will on the 4th of November when it's being released. Okay, it's a story about a totalitarian state which is overtaken, basically. Now, apparently, because of recent events, they might be putting off this film, but they can't really, because you see, 400 years ago, there was an event in London where on the 5th of November, 1605, of course, Guy Fawkes tried to blow up the House of Parliament and execute King James I, the 6th of Scotland. So it's the 400th anniversary, and that's what this film was supposed to be kind of a parody of in a sense. Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. It's the old nursery rhyme, you see, and we still commemorate it, don't we? Every year we have our bonfire nights, all right?
You know, we weren't going to let the bombers you know, I mean, I didn't even find it particularly frightening, you know, because we've had the IRA here before, you know, we've had bombs in England before, and we had the bombs obviously in the Second World War. So I think these people are totally misguided, the bombers, and you know, whatever they wanted to achieve, they obviously failed to achieve it.
In terms of the centre, the pressure we've had is from the media, in every sense of the word. I think the reality is that people don't know what is happening, what's going on. The media generally trying to find a story that isn't there. And that's quite frustrating, because if we're answering their questions and dealing with those issues, we're not doing what we're supposed to be really doing here.
So that was not the biggest protagonist in that was not what Guy Fawkes, it was Guido Fawkes, it was a guy called Robert Catesby. He was the man involved with it. And that's all to do with, as you've probably got a background, James I, who took over after Elizabeth, the king. They all thought he was going to, because Elizabeth I was very Protestant, and you know, they thought that James I was going to convert to a Catholic. And it just shows you how important religion has been in the history of London as well.
Stop Islamophobia. Now, for them to publish that, they must have good reason. Now, you know, once you open this up, you then get leaflet after leaflet after leaflet after leaflet, telling you what to do if somebody approaches you, threatens you, hits you, is aggressive towards you. And the police are obviously trying their very best to try and get, as much accurate reporting as possible.
Of course, if you've seen the James Bond film Die Another Day, then Toby Stephens parascends in, doesn't he? Yeah? Into London. Now, it's the only scene in a James Bond movie where they have used music that wasn't from the present day. They used a classic piece of music by a band called The Clash, London Calling. Yeah, so London Calling, and then he comes in on his parascends in. It wasn't Toby Stephens at all. It was his stunt double. Yeah? I think stunt double Tom Cruise. What do you think? I'm the same height. Bruce Willis. I don't know. Yeah, but there you go. All right, so you know, if you fancy being a stunt double, you've got to look like someone, haven't you, really? So I'm a bit lost there, I think.
We've given them a list of vulnerable areas, and they've responded to that. It's their decision to have static patrols outside. They have mobile patrols as well. I think if you make a comparison with this borough, Kensington, Chelsea, perhaps with other boroughs, you will find that the level of incidents are dramatically down in this borough. And I firmly believe that's due to the community relations section of the borough. The local police, led by Inspector Tim Harding and his predecessor, Dave Evans, working very closely with the people in the street, you know, making friends, making association with organisations like ourselves. You know, we've always invited them along to any events. They've kept us informed when things go wrong in the community. They let us know the facts so we can dispel any myths. I think that sort of cooperation really lends itself to a model of excellence, and I think that's what we've got in this borough, a real model of excellence, of communication and teamwork. And I just wish and hope that in the future that can be extended into other parts of this city and cities across the world, because it's not just about London, it's about the world.
Right, that is it, everybody. Thank you very much. And class dismissed. Thank you.